United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The mayor sends his regrets. He is at a function for our sister city, Cleve, Germany. So let's see. So he's not here, so there's no school committee chair report. Is there anything from the resource committee? That's Pete. Pete's not here. All right. Policy committee?
Marissa is temporarily chairing. She's not here, so.
Okay. Student support?
We haven't met again since my last update.
Okay.
We'll meet again when the school year starts.
All right. School personnel, I think, in the executive, there's no student report, and there's no staff-student presentations, correct? Right. All right. Do I hear a motion for approval of the minutes from the previous school committee meeting, the June 20th meeting?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous?
Yep.
Okay. I'm assuming we're not going into executive session. There's no need for that. New business? No. Unfinished business from previous meetings? Hearing nothing, we'll go forward. Communications? The superintendent's evaluation, that is before you. I think you received that and the accompanying graphs today. To just give an overview, the entire school committee participated in Superintendent Ravenel's performance, and there is a rubric that we followed. It consisted of, let's see, how many, 4 standards, and there were 29 questions in total. Basically, the entire school committee is very satisfied with Superintendent Ravenel's performance. He did not receive a rating less than proficient in any category. The comments, and I'll just briefly read the summary to you at the very end. Superintendent Ravenel possesses high standards of service, teaching, and learning, and has every expectation that such goals are attainable by the district. He is the consummate communicator because he not only speaks, he listens, which results in having a vision that is shared by administrators, staff, and students alike. He has demonstrated a consistent and dedicated commitment to the students in the Fitchburg Public Schools, which has made it possible for the district to make great strides toward reaching its goals. Granted, the district does have room for improvement, but there is little doubt that the upward trajectory that we've experienced under Superintendent Ravenel's guidance will no doubt continue. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has recognized Superintendent Ravenel's commendable work in the Fitchburg Public Schools by naming him Superintendent of the Year, an honor that he truly deserved. All right. There's the evaluation, and there's an accompanying set of graphs, and I think that the report pretty much explains. There's a few discrepancies in the percentages in the graphs and on the thing. Apparently, in the transfer from the rubric to the SurveyMonkey, there was a little glitch that if you chose to comment, it didn't allow you to choose a level of rating, and so we went back and gave everyone an opportunity who commented to then provide a rating, and some people did, so that's where the discrepancies come into play. Are there any comments with regard to the evaluation?
I just want to comment. Beth, thank you so much for taking this on. I oversaw this for the past 3 years, and it was always a pleasure to hear from my colleagues on school committee, because we had the chance to reflect on the past year and so many excellent projects and so much student-first activity. So we are very blessed to have this superintendent, especially at this time. Since 2008, since Pete and I have been on school committee, it's been an ever-tightening budget scenario, and now we're faced with a $180 million shortfall where the legislature is playing kickball with our kindergarten funding again.
Can I clarify that that's not 180 million, 180,000?
180,000.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, still dire.
It might as well be 180. No, I'm kidding.
Sorry, I looked at this very quickly this morning, but for me, it's always an opportunity to think about everything that we've experienced and the ways that we're moving forward. So thank you very much, Superintendent Ravenel, and really, thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd like to add, I think there's a really significant issue confronting particularly Fitchburg Public Schools, and it generally is in a context that has a broader effect on all urban schools. You're the name that is right in the mix. Whether it's, I met last week with Jeremy about looking to see what we can do in terms of internships and job shadow experiences and vocational training at the high school, and kind of shared what we do in my district. And once again, like, you are at the forefront of pushing the state to recognize the inadequacy of the current laws and regulations that prevent us from doing the very things people want us to be able to do. And every time I turn around, Andre, it's your voice that is at the state level, which is really where it has to be, because that's the only place we're going to get a change, and a change for everybody. I think we're in this business for kids and their future, and you always have that I guess voice for all those kids. So thanks.
Thank you.
And I just want to add, I've been on the school committee for a very short term, not nearly as long as Sally and Pete, but in the time that I've been here, in every aspect that I've seen, I've gone to a number of things that with regard to nutrition services. I've gone to, meetings with regard to negotiations for contracts, and at every opportunity, when we went to the nutrition services presentation, people were talking about things, and we were sitting there saying, we already do that. And I think that is because of your guidance and your ability to know and understand what the up and coming best practices are, and to put those into play beforehand, rather than waiting for the rest of the wait for the bandwagon to come by. So for that, we appreciate your leadership, and we hope it continues.
I'm surrounded by great people, and that's what really does it. They do. And I say that all the time. We are so lucky here. We have so many fabulous, not only administrators, but all of the staffs that work for them, and it just makes it easier when you've got people who kind of are heading all in the same direction, and that goes from school committee, and don't take that for granted either, that you have a school committee that's all heading in the same direction. Mm-hmm. There are school committees who aren't, right. And that makes the work of all the people in the district very difficult, because there's no clear direction. So, hopefully the best is yet to come.
Okay. Any further comment? Okay. And the next thing on the agenda is the charter ballot. Is somebody...
You've seen the emails going back and forth about that, and there were questions as to whether the school committee wished to take a position and put a statement, take an action related to the charter ballot. From the emails, it appeared that you wanted to have a discussion about it tonight. And there is an action item on the agenda tonight.
All right. Sally, do you want to talk a little? Do you want to address that? The charter ballot?
So this past 4th of July, I had the pleasure of marching with some extremely dedicated Fitchburg Public School staff under the banner of Save Our Public Schools. And since then, I've been handing out buttons, and I've got bumper stickers. And this is the only sensible way, I think, to approach the direction the Commonwealth appears to be heading, which is continuing to gouge and, garrote our efforts to keep a really quality educational budget going by siphoning money off to, for the most part, private entities. Charter schools are essentially private. They are not run by publicly elected officials. They use public money, plain and simple. So many of our colleague school committees are passing such a resolution, and this is just for the legislature to see that we are united. We do not want this. We cannot do the work we do if they're going to be approving charters at the rate of 12 a year, which is the projected number. So in 10 years, that's 120 charter schools. What gigantic percentage of that is of our public schools? A third or more? It's the most logical thing to do, and there was applause literally at every step of the way. People waving at teachers that they knew, and we got to march behind the Ahmadiyya Mosque with a little South Street boy and some kids from Leominster and a girl from McKay and our really great Muslim community who's here, who are very socially minded, and they were right along. They were cheering with us. So I think people get it. They really get it. So this is our opportunity to really make it public that we support public schools. Plain and simple, nothing but public schools.
Any other comments?
Well, I just like to appeal to people because I think it's just very difficult to get the nuance of debate when you are looking at a ballot initiative, and I think when you throw these big questions out there, should everybody have a choice to do what they want? And the natural reaction, I think, is that people want choice, right? That's what they're reacting to. But what they have to understand are the implications of what is going on from these policies, and the fact that we've put the local data together and shown people the disparities in demographics and populations in the local charter schools and our public schools, and how our public schools serve every student, whether they come to us with low needs or high needs, or speak English or don't speak English, and the public means that you don't exclude. And I think the fact that these are entities that are based entirely on exclusion, we have to really be careful and thoughtful about how we use public resources. It's not about, a lot of people have, I feel personally like people have insulted my position saying that I care just about money, and it's not about money. It's about protecting the rights of all these kids who have the absolute right and necessity of a decent public education. And the more that money is frittered away from the budget and not reimbursed, we just got that news that they're not going to reimburse at the rate that they said they were. They just never do. That there are going to be programs that Fitchburg kids the mass of Fitchburg kids won't be able to access because they want to do these experiments. And honestly, I'm an experimental person. I like that idea. But I haven't seen anything beyond small class size that has been truly an innovation that the charter school movement has put forward. And in some states, there's a very real concern that private money or private entities are taking public money, and that's what their mission is. And I think we all really need to be concerned about the threat to the concept that everybody deserves an education and a quality education. And I know it's attractive to think that you can escape that. I had a friend of mine say, those kind of kids. And I thought, what does that mean? Parker's a public school. What do you mean they don't deal with those kind of kids? You have to, but you don't when you get to select. And I think we have a lot of deep democratic concerns about what's going on. So this is not trying to deny people. They're small, trying to deny people these things. But I think we really need to do this in a thoughtful way. I was really a supporter of that Senate bill as it came out, because it started to actually deal with nuance. So you're going to rate schools and provide, that schools that service completely different populations, and you're just going to negate that whole idea about what the reality of a situation is in a system. I was really supportive of that, and I'm really not supportive of a ballot initiative that is not nuanced at all, and it just gives carte blanche to organizations to, take away public resources. So I'm really nervous about it. That's why I am gladly endorsing our stand against it.
Okay. Should we entertain that motion now?
I don't see why not. We've got it before us. So, motion to take item number 16707-16-17. A motion is made that the Fitchburg School Committee votes to oppose the November ballot question to lift the charter school cap. So we've been making a motion to move that out of order.
Yes, to take it out of order and
Yeah.
to vote on that right now.
Yes.
That's your motion.
That's my motion.
Do you want to
Do we
wait
wanna
to go
wait
through
for
for
full-
public testimony? Or, yeah.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry.
do we want to wait for a full committee members? Would that be a stronger vote?
I know that our colleagues who are not here, I mean, I know that Pete is certainly in accordance
Sure.
with this.
And I know that Marisa, I mean, through her emails, she has expressed her.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
I take your point. I think it might be stronger if we were all here, but I don't know that
I
that's going to
gather
happen
that.
before
Yeah,
September. So.
Exactly, and I think with this particular situation, time is of the essence, and that our voice joins a hopefully growing chorus.
I would just ask that we actually keep it in the order of action items, personally, just to get us a chance to kind of go through the rest of this.
Is that
That's
all right?
fine, I
I
will
mean,
draw
there
my
is
motion.
public
That's fine.
comment. I know there are.
Yep,
different
that's
people.
fine.
I
And
don't know.
we'll take that up when we vote on the other action items then. That's
Okay.
fine.
So I withdraw my motion.
All right. And at this point...
Oh, one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got a couple of communications. One is want to remind everyone the Fitchburg Public Library, which is the best library in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has a wonderful summer reading program, and kids can go and sign up and read books and get all kinds of prizes and fun stuff and recognition for the books they read. The library works very closely with our schools, and our beginner bookworm program is there once a month. So please, if your child wants to, like if your child is asking or your grandchild is asking, I don't have anything to read, go to the library. They will provide you with everything that would be good for your child to read. Paula, anything to add on that?
It's a great resource. Yes,
It
is.
truly is. The other resource is one I came across, or I was reminded of by chance. Eddie, Eddie's last name.
Pelton.
What?
Truckler.
Eddie
Troxler.
Troxler.
Eddie
Troxler.
Troxler he's a man with a master's degree in music education, and he's done a lot of work with our Fitchburg Public Schools, and he was at Longshow last term, I believe. He still has scholarship money available for music lessons, and he said, could you please get the word out? And I said, I'd be happy to. So I have applications here. You can get an application by emailing musiconmain2016@gmail.com. And it's a very simple application. It's for kids who want to learn guitar, ukulele, piano, or voice. He's a superb teacher, very patient. He's a brilliant jazz guitarist. Or you can stop by his store, which is right next door to Chibo and Boulder Drive. And I will bring these applications, Paula, because I'm volunteering, or actually I'm going to Riverfront Children's Theater. Will be at Journey's summer camp. So if there's any kids that we know would really benefit, we should.
Can you give the address again?
Absolutely. Music on Main 2016, Music on Main 2016@gmail.com. So that's Eddie Troxler, and he just wants to know, student information, and then why do you want to learn music? So great opportunity.
Excellent. Okay. Any other communications?
Actually, one more I forgot, which is our Art in the Park happened at Howard Park. Thank you, Fitchburg Public Schools, for distributing information, also the Y, also the library, and some other places. And we had a ton of therapy animals there, along with mural paper that stretched almost the whole fence. So we had not only a lot of kids from Fitchburg schools, but we had a lot of out-of-town kids too, which was lovely. And I just want to, again, we're going to do this next year, the Saturday after Civic Days, which means that Civic Days now extends another week in another direction with good stuff. So, quickie thanks to all. We had a great time.
And for those of you who missed Civic Days, you missed what everybody said was the best Civic Days we've ever had. So it was a really, really nice event. Okay. And now we're at the point where we have inviting public comment. And I will remind you, if you have a comment, there is a 5-minute limit.
So you know why I'm here, I think. It's the dog sniffs in schools. I'm very much against that. I think it's a Fourth Amendment violation. The Supreme Court has decided a different way on this, obviously. Back in 1983, I think they said that in public areas...
Excuse me, could you just introduce yourself for people who...
I'm sorry.
For those who don't know who you are.
Yes, I'm Neil Delfeld.
Okay, thank you.
And I live in Fitchburg, so this is my concern, of course. U.S. versus Place said that in common areas, a dog sniff is smelling the air around the packages, so it's not actually touching anything that some would consider have a right to privacy. And it's also searching only for drugs, so they considered this not to be a Fourth Amendment violation in those areas. I still think that that's a mistaken ruling. It was a holding which was never argued in court. And holding is just something that you have to set up so that you can argue the rest of the points in the court case. So this holding was never argued at the Supreme Court level. You can listen to the dialogue online at oyez.org, oyez.org, and the court case is U.S. versus Place. With that, they've essentially written a law, and in my mind, it oversteps the reach of the judicial branch. But that's my personal thing. I know you guys have been for this. I mean, the school committee and the administration has been arguing for this, and I seem to be the lone voice against it. I've created a couple pieces of fun. This is what I think is happening as far as how you get a canine search in place. And I think that there's one element missing, in the legal structure of this. I've got two there, sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And you can see it's the dashed line at the bottom. This is where the statement that was written on the back. Sorry for a bad photocopy, but the back has a statement from Principal Roach and Chief Martino that says that they want to send a clear message. But the problem is that the clear message is based on the suspicion that there's drugs in the state, that there's evidence that there's drugs in the state, that there's concern for the drugs in the state. But in order to have a searches in schools, you need articulable, reasonable suspicion that there is drugs in the school. So you can't just search all the kids' lockers unless you have reasonable, articulable suspicion that there's drugs in those lockers. This is a kind of like a sidestep of the law. Courts really haven't dealt with this very much. There was, I think, one in Illinois, one in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, that weren't Supreme Court level, but they have shown to be guides for most decisions in this area. My point is not really to say that what's going on is illegal. I think it is. But at the same time, I understand that this is going to be a hard thing to prove, at least to you guys, and even in front of the court. So I want to point out a couple things that I think support my position, at least support a view toward compromise toward my position. One of those is at the bottom of the backside, on the other side of the chart. I included this is data from the state's records for infractions, and you can see that for all illegal substances, there's 20 offenses. 20 students were disciplined. Look down that column. It's in the fourth column, students disciplined. And it breaks it down into categories of what was found and who was or how many were disciplined under those categories. Marijuana use, there was 4 offenses. 4 students disciplined. Marijuana possession, there's 2 students who were disciplined. But you add those numbers up, I mean, it's 15 students were disciplined for tobacco use. But, 4 plus 2 plus 15 equals 21. So obviously there's overlap someplace about students being disciplined for, my suspicion is one was caught smoking pot. So they actually had the evidence as well as were smoking. So there's a dual infraction. But you can see how the numbers can be added up. My point with this, though, is that there was 2 infractions for marijuana found in all of 2015. That is 0.5% of all the students that were there. This does not argue toward reasonable suspicion. When you're talking about reasonable suspicion, you have to have more than that, and the Supreme Court's held to that. You can't just have like 1 student doing it or 2 students doing it. You have to have a concern. There's no opioids were found, none. So here's the thing: you bring these dogs in on suspicion that you can find some drugs sometime. The problem is that I don't think that this gives you reasonable grounds for doing that. So, not to just argue this, I also want to point out that Principal Roach has done an outstanding job, if this is the case, an outstanding job of keeping drugs out of the school. Whatever he's doing, He's already doing it. He's already got it in place. He doesn't need more. And the reasonable suspicion that there's more, I don't think is there. What we do have reasonable suspicion of is that he's doing a bang-up job. I mean, there's no reason to go further. The thought I had, though, was that since they want to send a clear message, and they didn't really spell out what that clear message is in the letter, they just said they want to send a clear message. Let's make it a message instead of like stepping on the lines of the Fourth Amendment. Let's make it a message. Have a meeting at the beginning of school, all school assembly. Show what the dogs can do. Bring the dogs in and show them like how they can find stuff like in a bag, how they can find stuff in a locker. This will put the fear of God in kids, if anything will. They'll show them that the dogs do the job, they do work, and they can find what they want to find. So if it's ever necessary to bring the dogs in, okay, I mean the students understand that they do have a risk there. The second part of this, though, is that I'd like the policy to state, you can always write a policy for canine searches. Write a policy that states why you would bring the dogs in, on what grounds is reasonable articulable suspicion. For instance, finding marijuana that somebody doesn't claim or doesn't, you can't attach to one student or a group of students, or having like 15 students talking about it in a corner and then, so we don't want to search everybody's lockers, but still 15 students, that's a concern. So write a policy and show a demonstration to the dogs. That way we don't have to have any concerns from me that you're searching the entire school with dogs. And it still proves the point. It still sends a clear message and still have a policy in place for when you need to bring the dogs in.
Yeah.
One second, let me make sure that I touched on anything.
Your 5 minutes
5 minutes.
are
All right.
we're up a few minutes ago, but if you want to just wrap up your final thought, in a sentence or
really
two,
not,
that would be great.
Not very important. There is running a risk of losing the respect for authority by going overboard with searches, overboard with trying to find that one student that has drugs. I mean, you can really damage your image as a school committee, as a principal, as authority figures that you sort of need to keep intact.
Okay.
It's a small risk, but I think it's worth thinking about if there's no benefit on the other side.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks.
I'll present this again next time since there's like 5 people here.
All right. Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay. And the superintendent's report.
Yeah, just to give you, I gave you a little bit of an update in your email on staffing. We're in the process of hiring. You can well imagine at the end of the year, we have people, if you remember, we had a lot of people who retired. All of those positions, will need to be filled. And we have a lot of administrative positions for a variety of reasons. We've had a number of assistant principals who have left, either new jobs, maternity leave and not coming back, all kinds of things. So there's been a lot of interviewing going on in the last couple of weeks. We have the cabinet. The way it works is that for an administrative position, there's a school-based committee that does the initial interview, and then they hopefully can send me 2 or 3 candidates, unranked, any one of which would be a good candidate because people back out after you choose them. So last week our cabinet interviewed for 2 of the schools, and we agreed. Then I called the principal and I have a conversation with the principal and say, here's what we saw, what did your group see, here's what we're thinking, because we interview them, and I like to interview them because I always tell them, I'm not just hiring you for the school.
Right.
We're hiring you for the school district. Right. So you need to, it needs to be somebody who really wants to work collaboratively. And I also tell them that, you might be in a school that's a level 1 year, and guess what? Your responsibility is also to all of the schools that aren't level 1, because you might be there this year, but next year you might not, and someone else needs your help. So we were able to agree on 2 candidates for 2 of the schools, and it's not finalized yet, so I won't tell you who that is. We still have 3 candidates that are being interviewed as we're looking at it. So there's going to be some interviews this week, and then I'm going to be away at the Executive Institute all next week. I will be available. by phone, and I'll be checking emails and doing all of that. But then when we come back, hopefully we'll have our next round of administrator interviews. But very impressed. One of the schools today, we asked Rick at Cabinet how many applicants. There were 40 applicants
Wow.
for a VP's position.
Wow, that's
So that's really good. And so far, the committees that have been doing the interview are sending me 2 or 3 candidates. One school sent me 2, the other school sent me 3. So they've got good candidates. People are really, I love doing this because you really you get to meet people who are in public education and why they want to come to Fitchburg, what they would provide, and it's kind of renewing, okay, there are a lot of people who want to do this urban work, and they know what they're in for, because we really try to scare them away. I mean, we just tell them that, if you're going to do it right, whether you're working urban or suburban or anywhere, it's got to be a lot of work. It needs to be difficult. And we have high expectations, and our principals have high expectations. Our evaluation system, all kinds of things have really raised the bar. So it's not about just coming here and hanging out. So we're really pleased, and the principals are pleased too. So, I'll keep you posted.
Excellent.
So that's one communication. The other one is, I said in my email, I really would love to find a time to have a retreat in August, but I'm not sure. I think there are a few people who can't make any dates in August at all. Is that correct?
Not from mine.
No?
I'm around.
I'm missing the middle week, the 12th, 13th.
Okay,
that week.
so it might be still possible? Okay, so maybe even the last week, even though we have administrative council, our administrative meetings, we might be able to find. So I was thinking maybe the end of August, or if we have to, the beginning of September, because I think it would be really helpful. And by that time, we'll have the park results. We'll have some meat and potatoes in terms of, okay, where are we? Where are still the things we need to do?
When
Where
do
do
you
we want to put our focus? Yep.
When do you think they'll have the park results?
They're actually out today
But not
in
publicly.
raw form
Right.
and embargoed, so we can use them for our own internal work. I don't have the dates memorized. I think the first week of August, we should have better data.
Right.
It still may not be public, other than broad statements.
But enough to work with, and enough to tell us, what we need to do and where we need to go. So, and then also very pleased, as you saw, that South Street is a 21st century site.
Yay.
They have been, so people at home, if you're at South Street, I know they have been wanting an
That's great.
after-school program when they lost it. I've got to give kudos to our staff at central office, but really the principal, Jonathan, he really wanted this. He got his group together there. It's $125,000 over 3 years. That's going to be great.
nice.
That's a
Yep.
big school with lots of needs. So that's going to be a piece, and that can also now help inform, and maybe that's something we can do at the retreat. We just started talking about an after school. What do we want to do? But that needs more work. So I'll be back then. I'll start soliciting dates from people and see when we can do this.
Could I ask a follow-up on that? So when we last talked about it, you were sending bids out, right, for vendors for after school. Have you gotten information back from that? Or?
We haven't sent anything out yet.
Okay.
And that's I know it was related to purchasing, so I don't know.
Well, I guess we need to have a clear specification of what we want, and we haven't done that yet.
So I
Okay.
guess now that South Street is not a question anymore.
Changes are
Right. The scope maybe. And, so yeah, that would be really good to take up in August, just to maybe hit the ground running.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
I had another question. Are we going to talk at all? what's the strategy now to compensate for the cutting of the kindergarten grant?
We're going to be spending the summer looking at, where we can cover that. So we have no intention of not doing it. We have to do it.
Yeah.
We still, the budget, last year's budget is not still finalized in terms of, where are we in terms of carryover. So we'll be looking at that.
The carryover, like staff and what's, okay.
And then also, we talked today, and Bob talked to the city, the Chapter 70 isn't finalized yet.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're still looking at that and seeing, where we stand. So it's in flux. Yep.
Let me be clear. The Chapter 70 is finalized,
Right.
but the amount to meet net school spending is not, because there are
That's-
some variables that we know of, and still a couple variables that are still, haven't been calculated yet on the city side. So, this is the process we go through every year. So, there may be an opportunity where that is the source that funds full-day kindergarten.
Okay.
But I guess from a fiscal perspective, I feel confident that we'll be able to fund that. So,
Would you be able to update us through email when you know
yep.
a little bit more?
Once we
Okay.
finalize, yep, definitely.
Thank you.
And then the last one, the staffing, is we've been looking at our enrollment, and we need another teacher at Crocker. The numbers are just, there is no way. So because we're adding an FTE, we're not able to do that without your approval. So we're asking you to approve the addition of an additional teacher at Crocker. We've already talked to Adam. He has the space for it. And, we will be able to cover that in the budget without an additional appropriation or anything.
That's a good thing.
It's a great thing.
That's a great thing.
Question, is this a result of increased enrollment coming in, or is this like a grade that has a bubble that's moving up to the next grade?
Well, if I
Yeah,
might,
go ahead.
Yeah.
so part of your request 2 years ago was to lower class size at kindergarten.
Yep.
And at that time, we had over 450 students in the kindergarten cohort. So we added an 18th teacher. It lowered class size this year. However, the enrollments for kindergarten were significantly under 450 students. So in the budget discussions, we cut that 18th teacher because the enrollment surge didn't continue. At this point, and Al Pierce tracks enrollments going back 4 years, we have 340 kindergartners already enrolled. For the past 3 years, we had anywhere between 225 and 250 enrolled at this time of the year.
Oh, wow.
So that people are coming in earlier, that's great. But usually the kindergarten enrollment surge is just before school opens in the middle of August. So we're concerned that it's not really a bubble and it's not a plateau, it's more like a wave. But given that this year at this time, our enrollment in kindergarten is already high. So we really feel that we need that additional teacher back in kindergarten.
How's our first grade enrollment?
That's holding stable. The other, I just looked at the kindergarten today, so that's why I know it's 340. It's hard to know if there are more, because kids come and go all summer. So I didn't review the withdrawals as much as I took a quick glance at the new students and at the kindergarten level in particular, because they've not been with us in a regular full-day program yet. But we can get that. We can get that from X2. Or we can send that information to you.
So it's a good problem to have.
Yes, it is.
That,
Yeah.
we have, our
We're
enrollment
robust.
is staying, and then that's what will help us for next year with Chapter 70, if
Right.
wherever those students are. Okay, that's, so then grants is just the one grant, and it's to accept the 21st Century. Got a really nice email from Carol Resnick just again saying congratulations to the Fitchburg Public Schools. We're thrilled to be working with you and excited about this opportunity, you know, at South Street, and that's for $125,000.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Ravenel. The next item on the agenda is for public testimony. I don't see any other members of the public. I'm assuming there's no one out there who's wishing to speak at this point in time. So we'll take up the action items. And the first action item we have is 16-707. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Make a motion to oppose the November ballot question to lift the charter cap.
Second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Action item 16-708, approve the superintendent recommendation to add one new Crocker staff to meet enrollment need for class size. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to add the teacher.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion, item 16-709, to approve the superintendent recommendation to accept the following grant, titled 21st Century After School Grant for South Street Elementary School. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to accept.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Action item 16-710, a motion to approve the student's recommendation to accept the warrant in the amount of $509,666.25.
Make a motion.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
To pay the bills.
Yeah, I know. I
Thank
didn't
you.
know if I should do that.
I know. He
can.
wasn't here, so.
In his
All right.
honor.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion, action item 16-711, to approve the student's recommendation to accept the warrant in the amount of $864,649.69.
Make a
Motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I think it,
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Okay. Adjourn.